Welcome to HortTube. My name is Putnam. If you're following along with the channel, you know we jumped in, I think, on a video on Saturday as you're watching this, maybe on Tuesday, with the first cleanup video out here. We do a lot of herbaceous perennials and flowering annuals, or perennials that aren't hardy here that are just annuals for us. But normally, sometime in October, we come in here and have pulled a lot of them out, and then we've replaced them with pansies or dianthus and snapdragons and several things that will last through the winter for us, some leafy greens as well that will last through the winter. We just decided not to do that this year. We stayed out of town for a while, let our annuals continue to flower until major freeze, killed them back to the ground, and the herbaceous perennials killed back to the ground. A lot of them went to sleep kind of ugly, like cracking open some of our perennials. I'm a little nervous that some of them won't come back from that, because once they crack like that, water can get down in them during the winter, and that freeze thaw can just continue to do damage to them during the winter time. But we cleared out some of those annuals the other day. But one thing I wanted to point out here, leaving those annuals, turns out that a lot of birds were able to continue to take advantage of them. So the gomphrena and other things. It was a welcome thing coming home, realizing that I hadn't converted everything to other color, and things were able to take advantage of the fact that we hadn't done that. So we took out, in that video the other day, an annual border here in the front garden that was turf, and now it has a path going through the middle of it. We need a few more evergreen things along this path here, and there's an abelia and a few conifers that will fill out some in time, so it won't look quite as this stark in the wintertime. But we cut that in and then planted some bulbs along this path, and I think I'm going to continue those bulbs a little further down because I have a few more that we might do in another video. Jumped over to this side. The path that comes from the driveway over here, the stepping stones, which ultimately will be replaced with some sort of stone path, are low and they need to be raised up. In the meantime, I cleaned them off today, got all the annuals along that path cleared out, but they're low, so I edged along the side of it to get the soil up and away from it, but they're buried in soil all the time now, so they need to be raised up, or go ahead and do the project, Jim, and get the stone path in over there, one or the other. One thing you'll find when you're pulling out some of these annuals, perennials, maybe an old shrub border that you're pulling out, when you're erasing anything in your garden, you're going to find some potentially noxious weeds. Some of the ligustrum got pulled out, but you're also going to find, we found in this border right here, I've actually got some Bermuda grass growing up under these annuals right here. So this is a dedicated annual bed, and it's really loose compost and bark. So I can do a pretty good job in here of pulling that Bermuda grass out and following it along underground to get as much of it out as possible. Not really that easy in other areas in the garden, but you will find hidden things that you don't want in your garden when you do that. You also find that maybe an annual or perennial laid on something too long. These are lessons learned out here in the garden, that, we had a salvia that laid right in here on this abelia all summer long. It's not that big of a deal. It'll fill right back in. But kind of the point of this abelia is that it looks good in the winter, and then the annual color looks good during the summer, and so I don't want these things damaged, because then the winter looks just as, it looks like it's damaged. So anyway, that's a lesson learned, to make sure we once or twice during the summertime go along and cut our annuals, our temporary plants, off of our permanent plants so they don't cause any trouble. One thing I talked about in that video from Saturday is all of this root material that's here from a large maple that got removed. The stepping stone path that's here in the front, some of them have settled because those roots are settling. And again, so there's lots more to do out here. In the back garden, you can see from this drone footage that you're watching now, I put the drone up above and I refound my paths where all the leaves have fallen back there. We leave our leaves in the garden, but we do have too many of them back there. And so this is an issue that, I want to leave my leaves in the garden. I want them to break down and become mulch. I want the birds to have an opportunity to flip them over and find the insects on them. I want them to do what leaves are supposed to do, holding moisture in place and keeping that soil slightly warmer than it would otherwise. All the benefits I get from leaving the leaves back there. But unfortunately, some of my evergreen perennials get buried in it. And the evergreen perennials definitely don't want to be buried like that during the winter time. So things like the hellebores that are going to need some light toward the end of winter need to be unburied. Any evergreen perennial you have, aspidistra, cast iron plants. So I went ajuga is a great example. If you leave the leaves sitting on top of your ajuga all winter long, some of it's going to rot in all likelihood. So I pulled the leaves off of all of those things, and then there's some spaces back there where the leaves are just too thick, regardless of where they're occupying. And so I take a lot of those and I bring them to a hard space. So a lot of the leaves out here in the front garden, I'm putting on the driveway, and I'll run the lawnmower over them on the driveway. In the back, we have the new patio. So I took a lot of leaves and put them on the patio and just ran the mower back and forth across them. It turns a big pile of leaves into something that's 10% that size, 20% that size, and you can just blow it right back in the bed. And now it's this thick instead of this thick. So that's a strategy that I implement. I want to leave as many whole as possible because there is life on those leaves, especially on that white oak back there. It's a host of so many creatures, but some of them, unfortunately, it's just too many. So we'll take some and chop them up and then just blow them right back in the bed. We've got leaves along the street out here from neighbors blowing all their leaves over. I'll put those on the driveway and mow those up. Everything will get reused out here in the garden. One of the goals over the last 4 years has been to get to the point where we have all of this organic material that we can use back in our own garden. So any of these leaves, any of these annuals I'm pulling out, any of these perennials I'm cutting back, all of this material is to go, to be composted and then come right back into some portion of the garden, whether it be coming back and being the compost for an annual bed or the vegetable garden or just mulch, whatever it is. All of those things will come back in here. Any larger material, larger stems, sticks, heavy cutbacks, those will go through the chipper and just be mulch, out here in the beds, or our wood chips for our paths, whatever, doesn't matter. It's all material that's going to come recycled back in here and let the plants from last year feed the plants for next year. That's the end goal with the garden. It took a minute because it takes a while for things to grow big enough that you're actually cutting things off, or that your annuals, when you plant annual borders the first year, I think people could get pretty disappointed in them because they don't perform all that well the first year. It takes a while to get enough organic material. It takes a while to uncompact soil, probably in a new house where there was new construction and the subsoil is so compact. I can take, stay right there, Steph. This was extremely compact soil out here. And now, I can do that. This isn't the longest shovel in the world because I've worn it down a lot, but you can see anywhere I want to, I can stick that shovel down in the ground. That took 4 years. Okay, but now when we plant annuals in these annual borders or new perennials or new anything out here in the garden, it really has the opportunity to root deep with vigorous root systems that can get down and get water more easily, can get nutrients more easily, can form relationships with mycorrhizal fungi and beneficial bacteria and that kind of thing. And those relationships are what makes these plants more vigorous. The plants being more vigorous allow more material to, us end up gaining more organic material that we can put right back in the garden. So that's kind of the engine that we've created. But again, it's taken about 4 years to get to that point. So there you go. There's another round of cleanup. We've got lots more to do out here. We're going to be making a major change back here in the vegetable garden that is going to allow us to have a very long compost bin put in as a backdrop to the vegetable garden back there. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and thank you guys so much for following along.